Anyway, so I guess I will jump to my second encounter. So after, like, immediately after the first encounter ended and I went into the house, I was like thinking, I made a mistake. I really wanted to go. I should have gone. I should have left. And so I'm thinking, how do I get them to come back? And so I start thinking about how can I get them to come back? And I'm thinking, well, the only thing I could think of that they would want to come back for would be to see if we could launch a reusable spacecraft. So that was the space shuttle, which had not launched yet. It had not taken its first voyage yet. So I figure, well, maybe they'll come back to see the first space shuttle launch, because that's the first reusable spacecraft mankind has ever launched. So I had to figure out how to get on base to see the first launch. So I'm thinking, well, how do I get on base? And I thought about my father. My father once owned, do you know the history of the Corvette?
The Corvette, no.
Okay, so the first year of the Corvette it was a steel craft. It was a steel car. And, it's fiberglass. It's been fiberglass ever since the second year, but the first year was steel.
Okay.
The second year was fiberglass. So before the second year, my father had purchased a pre-production prototype of the Vet, the fiberglass version, before it was ever released to the public.
Okay.
Okay. If I had that car today and I sold it, I would probably be a millionaire.
Yeah,
So
imagine. Yeah.
so anyway, he would be driving down the freeway at, in those days, my dad told me the speed limit was like 85, and if you were doing 100, the cops wouldn't even look at you twice because they didn't care. You'd have to be doing 120 or something like that before they would even pull off the side of the road. And so I don't know if that's true, but it's something he said. Anyway, he would be driving along, whether he's on the highway or on the local, and he'd get stopped, and the cop would start writing him up a ticket for speeding when he wasn't speeding. And the cops did this because they wanted to see the car. And so he'd get all these tickets when he wasn't even speeding, just because the cops wanted to see what he was
To stop
driving.
him and see the car, yeah.
Yeah, and so I thought about that, and I was like, okay, so I've got to get a vehicle that will attract attention. I'll, what vehicle would that be? And I thought, and I was looking around, and the Yamaha had just come out with the Virago V10 or V10 engine something. No, V4, Virago V4, and or something like that, whatever it was. The Virago V engine. It was a V like that, and so I figured if I bought one of those and I took it down to Cocoa Beach, parked it on the beach, somebody with a pass to get on base on Cape Canaveral base for the first launch would come over, walk over, look at the motorcycle, we'd start a conversation, and they would take me on to Cape Canaveral to see the first launch. So got up the day before the launch, and I drove to Cocoa Beach and parked it on the beach, and a guy walked over and started looking at it, and we started talking, and basically what I hoped would happen happened. The only guy that came over to look for it was the guy that had the pass to get on base, and he asked me how I was going to see the launch. I said I had no idea how I was going to see the launch, and he said, "Well, I have a pass to get on base come with me and we'll go on base. And so, the next day, I packed up my stuff, put it on the motorcycle, and I followed him to Cape Canaveral. And I parked the motorcycle outside the base, outside the gate, and I took the pack off the back of it and I stuck it in the back of his station wagon. And his smallest kid was sitting across from my pack. And so anyway, we went on base. I'm going to cut to the chase here. We went on base, and so we're riding along in the station wagon. And anyway, when we're going on base the second time, I kind of jumped past the main event, but it's 5:30 in the morning. It's very dark. There's no moon out. The stars are out, and the cars are maybe 1 or 2 car lengths from car to car, and we're going at like 5 miles an hour, no more than 10 miles an hour, very, very slow speed. And so as we're going on to Cape Canaveral, I get the idea to tell them the same story I just told you. So I tell them the whole story exactly like I told you. And oh, Jesus. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to have to flash back to the first event because I skipped a major piece. Okay, so I'm going to flash back to the first event. So I'm sitting there in the car, and after, I always forget this part, after the images appeared and disappeared of the craft, I had this dialogue start occurring in my head. It was like I was talking to myself. And the question I got was, where would you go to leave this planet? And I said, I would go anywhere to leave this planet. And the next question was, would you go to hell to leave this planet? And I said, I would go anywhere to leave this planet. That was probably not the right answer. But anyway, if you just took that conversation that happened in my head out of context, you would think, the aliens are demons. But now I'm going to go back forward to, I'm telling these people my first encounter, and I go through the whole thing just like I did with you. And the second I get through, the second I utter the last word, just like it said in that paragraph on my webpage of my book, the second I utter that last word, the German or whatever he was, kid, young 20-something, laughed. He laughed at me. He didn't believe my story. He didn't believe any of what I just told you. So in my head, I said, God, mentally, I said, God, I wish you would show them what I saw in the previous encounter. Or I didn't say it like that, but I just said, God, I wish you would show them what I saw. And within about 1 to 3 seconds after I mentally said that, oh, no, I'm skipping. No, I'm not skipping. Okay. 1 to 3 seconds after I said that, or mentally said that, there was a craft sitting in front of us, identical to the first craft, directly in front of the car. And, or
So they're
maybe,
definitely in tracking you or connected with you.
so we're going around this curving Causeway Road, and this thing is like coming directly towards, like, we're curving slightly, but it's not a tight curve. It's a very slow curve. And it's basically directly in front of the car. And it's about the same distance and height as it originally was. And so, but maybe slightly higher, but not much. So when the kid laughs at me and I say, what I said in my head, and then it appears. Then the kid says, maybe that's what he saw. And then the driver, the father of the other three kids that are in the car, say, yeah, maybe that is what he saw. So the two adults acknowledge verbally that they're seeing this craft. Okay. Then I look to my left at the kid, the girl is sitting to my far left. I'm sitting on the right. The oldest kid is the girl who's on the far left side of the car. Between us is the older boy. And then behind me, where your luggage would be, and they had no luggage in the car, was the young kid, the 6-year-old or however old he was. And when I looked at the kids at that moment, when the craft is sitting there, the kids looked like if Batman's Mr. Freeze had shot them with the freeze ray. They were dead frozen.
They were frozen.
Not even their eyeballs were. They were absolutely, totally frozen. And the adults were totally animated. They were not, they were just like me. They were totally animated. But at that moment, after the driver said, yeah, maybe that's what he saw, instantly after he said that, they lost all interest in the craft. It's like it wasn't even there, or they didn't care about it, or whatever. They were totally without any interest in it at all. They weren't staring at it. They weren't going, wow, check that out, nothing. They were just, they were.
Could you still see it when they lost interest? You could still see it?
I can still see it. So I'm gonna go to another event shortly that's gonna give you another piece. But anyway, so we're going at this thing, getting closer and closer to it, and we go under it. It's sitting directly above the left curving 2-lane causeway road, 1 lane in each direction. Now on each side of this road, it drops off. You know, you could probably pull your car off the road, and that's about all the length you would have off the side of the road. And beyond that, it drops off immediately into water, which has alligators on both sides, right? Alligators and crocodiles or whatever they got there. And so we go under this thing, and I stick my head I stick the top of my head against the window to my right, and the window is curved out and back. It's got a curve like this, and out. The window is it goes out and comes back basically, and such that I can stick my head, the top of my head, against the window, and I can see straight up outside the car. Okay. And so when I look up and we're directly under this thing, I can see the edge of it turning, okay, directly above the car. And so, and then we go past it, out beyond it, and, you know, it's about 30 to 50 foot off the ground, no more than 50 foot. It's probably, you know, closer to 30 foot. I could have literally hit it with a rock if I'd gotten out of the car. In those days, I couldn't today, but back in those days, I could have thrown a rock and hit it. It was that low, or I couldn't got real close to it. And so I look back at it, and I'm looking. The kids are still frozen. The adults are not frozen, but they're not looking back. They don't care about it anymore. I'm the only person in the car looking at this thing, and we keep going, and all the other cars are going underneath this thing also. Not a single car stops. Okay. And we keep going around this left curving causeway road until the point where, and the only thing different between the first craft and the second craft is that it's not vibrating. Aside from the vibration, they're identical. Okay. And so we go all the way around this curving causeway road until we get to where the trees block out the craft. It never moved. one time from its position. So, and I
Wow.
was into that encounter. And so, anyway, I'm going to fast forward to an encounter I had in Peru. This was like the third encounter I had. Actually, it's not the third. I had in between the first encounter and the second encounter, that 6-month period, there was a week where I went out every single night, like 5 nights in a row, and I saw something high up in the sky that was, I can't recall each of these events because they were just not that big of a deal to me in my mind, so I can't recall. But these are like where I would lay down on my back in the apartment complex I was at on the grass. And I would look up and I would see a couple stars, and then they looked brighter than than the rest of the stars. And then all of a sudden, one of them would start drifting off, like it wasn't a star.
Yeah,
And
I've seen that before.
this happened like 5 nights in a row. Okay,
Wow.
in between my first and second account.
Okay, let's stop there, Mike.
Okay.
We've gone about an hour and a half. That's about all I scheduled for today. But so that's fascinating about the kids being frozen like that, because you probably don't remember my sharing, if I'd even shared it on your channel, but when um when I had contact from the gray beings that would rescue me, I remember that they would freeze the other person that was in
Yeah, you told me.
did I tell you? Okay. Yeah. And and I had never heard anybody say anything about that, but also, and you know this, there's so many times when someone will see a ship, but nobody else sees it or acknowledges it in the sky.
Yeah, I was going to go to one of those, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's pretty what I'm understanding, because I also host support group here in town in this area where people have said they'll see a ship, but nobody else can see it. There's people, around that won't even notice it. And one thing also with the ship moving, like you were talking about with your first encounter with it moving like back and forth, and you could tell that it would go above a line or below a line kind of thing.
Yeah,
I have to, and the stars that were switching out,
yeah,
I have to wonder if it makes me think of grid lines, the hologram. Maybe, that they're moving within the grid, and that perhaps the I don't know, it just makes me think about this because I know my photographs show grid lines. Sometimes my paranormal photos that I get, there's grid lines behind light in my photos sometimes. So, and I've seen the Matrix. I probably told you that. So I don't know. That's something that comes to mind. Have you ever thought about that or anything like
well,
that?
the one thing about the movement is that it was going up and down at a 45-degree angle, but the craft itself was staying level the whole time. So I've never seen I've never seen a helicopter do that. I've never seen no jet could do that. I have seen an Apache sitting perfectly stationary, but he probably pushed a button and that he has that will just lock the the helicopter in a perfectly stationary position, but it's holding its own position. I don't think the pilot is holding that. And
Yeah,
this thing was moving with perfect precision, which I've never
right,
seen any
right.
aircraft do that.
Yeah, it just makes me think of grid lines and ley lines. And I've heard about research where apparently craft will move across certain ley lines. They seem to sometimes move across ley lines across the country or across the world, different types of grid
Yeah,
lines or ley lines.
yeah, that's the belief that spirits travel across with the ley lines, and a lot of holy places around the world built on the ley lines because they probably did a lot of figuring out to figure out where the ley lines were, and then they built the temples or the churches or whatever on those ley lines.
Right. On
Because
certain, yeah.
yeah, because of
Yeah.
the movement of ghosts and various different things on those ley lines.
Yeah, well, and with the research I saw, it didn't have anything to do with spirits or ghosts, but it was sightings across certain, there'd be a group of sightings, across certain ley lines across the country, that type of thing.
Well, the 33rd parallel across the United States, I think that there's a line directly across the United States in the center of the United States. It's supposed to be a big hotspot.
A super highway.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah, I'd like to talk about your book, but not today. If we
Sure.
could do that another time.
Sure.
Okay. Well, appreciate you sharing that with me. Those are some amazing. Do you think that you ever went on the ship and you just don't remember?
No, I didn't go on the ship. They knew I'd changed my mind, and whoever, I'm not, Carrie Cassidy made the statement, there might not have even been any aliens in that craft. The craft
It could
itself
be
may have
human.
been the creature might have been the craft itself. And she's right. To this day, I don't know what was in that craft or if there was any inside to the craft. I don't know what was inside of it, both times. But what I like to tell people is if they think about that first conversation where they asked me if I would go to hell to get away from the earth, then in the second encounter on base, they turned off the minds of the kids because I think the aliens didn't feel that the kids were mature enough to have that encounter. And I don't think demons would have any care for your mind, how it would react. So
No, that's true. Yeah. And plus, the two gentlemen that you were with, obviously they did something to them to where they wouldn't be all freaked out about the craft either.
Yeah, well, I had another encounter in Peru where a lady had a similar, where it was a group encounter with at least three guys. We're all seeing this thing, and there was a lady there that she was leaning against the thatched hut. She never got off her rear to get up, and we told her, there's this craft thing up here. Why don't you come check it out? And she didn't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they do that, and depending on where we're at with our perceptions and stuff, right?
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's every person is different.
Yes. So they were right. Humanity at that time was probably not ready.
Well, I don't think it's ready today, but that's just my personal
No, I think we're getting there. We're getting
yeah,
there.
we're moving there. I don't know how long it's going to be for.
Right.
I think a few people have to die off before.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think. Yeah, unfortunately, it's but hey, I think it's going to be in our lifetime.
You do? All right.
It's happening. I see it happening, at least in my circles.
Well, if they keep showing up with more and more frequency, and the DoD keeps reporting them, and they keep recording them, the problem with the government is they're still covering it up. You think that the government is releasing, but they're not. That's a fallacy.
Oh, I know. I don't depend on the government. That's for sure.
Well, the best video I've ever seen, I saw it on YouTube, and it was a government recording. The government itself recorded the alien craft, just like the 3-minute videos that you saw of the gun camera footage. Remember those?
The what camera footage? The what?
The ones that were released to the public on the nightly news.
Oh yeah, those.
They were 3 minutes long, and they were shot from a jet, right? Okay, well, one of those is a very small piece of a much larger video, that was on YouTube for about a day or two. Somehow I saw it and they pulled it. I've still got a link to this location where this video was. It's a 2-hour video and you cannot see it anymore because it's no longer there.
Yeah.
So that's the best footage I've ever seen. That's the full length of one of those 3 minutes. There's like an hour long. It was shot by the Customs and Border Patrol in Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay.
Over the
Well,
airport.
yeah, I think if we're depending on the government to tell us that UFOs are real, it's not going to happen, just like you said. So it has to come from us. I would totally believe that we are the disclosure, and that's what extraterrestrials have known all this time, and so that's why they're showing themselves to us in a way that we could handle it.
Sure.
Yeah. So when the government says, "Okay, UFOs are real," we're like, "Duh, we've already known that." Yeah, that's all you got? We got a lot more than that. Sheesh. Okay. Okay,
Well,
Mike. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences.
you're welcome. Come back again when you want to hear more.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about your book.
All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.
Have a good evening.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Mike.